I always had a passion for pediatrics. So when I finally landed on occupational therapy in undergrad, I knew I was really interested in working with children. It's always been kind of a passion of mine. And don't worry, I know I'm in the right place. I'm talking about older adults and senior housing, but I just thought that's what I would be. And all my internships, my volunteer hours, everything was in pediatrics. I had lined up where I was going to work. As soon as I finished graduate school, I was going to go back to where I grew up, work for the Board of Education there. Everyone knew me, and that was going to be it. However, when I got to graduate school down in Philadelphia at Thomas Jefferson University, I had some experiences. My field works were with the older adult population, and I fell in love with it. To me, people always ask, like, what is the best part? And it's their stories. It's the ability to kind of engage them in a conversation, learn about who they are. And for a lot of them, they've already experienced what true independence was like, or they know what they want to do. And now our role as an occupational therapist or anyone in this kind of environment is to figure out how do we get them back to where they need to be. In the FOX mission statement, it's get them back to what they thought was once impossible. And I just really always liked that. So I graduated in 2011, have been with FOX. I entered as a newly graduated professional in Philadelphia. Been here for 14 years now, next month. And it's obviously been good to me. I love what I do. Here with FOX as an occupational therapist, I've had the opportunity to be in a senior living community as the lead for over 10 years. 3 different ones, I would say, over the last 14 years. And the one I'm in now, I've been there for almost 9 or 10 years. I honestly can't even remember now. So it's 2 miles from my house. I absolutely love it. It's gorgeous. I should have probably took pictures and had it part of this presentation, but it's a beautiful senior living community that offers both memory care for those who need it, as well as assisted living. They call personal care, if they need it. I have my board certification in gerontology through the American Occupational Therapy Association. So there's one of those letters that pops up, my BCG. This is, you have to sit for an exam. When I did it back in 2019, I had to put together a nice 65-page portfolio of things that I've done over the last X number of years. And I will never forget the day I received notification that I achieved this board certification and I got approved. My submission was also the day of my first COVID exposure. So I'll never forget. That was just a wonderful highs and lows. I remember reading an email, being so excited, and then an hour later getting a phone call that I had to go home. So it's just one of those things that I'll never forget when I got it back in April 2020. But definitely something I'm proud of. I just renewed my certification. I also help now teach any of those clinicians in the practice who are interested in earning their board certification in gerontology. I'm part of the module planning, the group setup, and help them get there. Some of the other things I have is my certification. I'm a certified dementia practitioner. I also have my LSVT, which is a specialized intervention that you utilize with individuals with Parkinson's disease. And it's a really specific type of intervention. You could only document and discuss LSVT if you're actually doing it. So it's one of those things you have to follow a specific protocol of interventions and frequency and duration and everything like that so you can actually do it. Within the practice, some other things that I've done is I was involved in recruitment. So as an OT, I was also helping with recruiting of newly graduated professionals. I assisted with the student program here. I will say that role was probably still one of my favorite roles. I've always had a passion for teaching and being a mentor. I loved having the opportunity to meet with prospective students, prospective clinicians. I just loved it. I also got to travel, which was pretty nice. I got to go to a lot of universities like yours and present and conferences, and it was just a really cool thing. And then some changes happen, obviously COVID again, twice on one slide, but things have to change and you've got to kind of adapt with it. I've also had a QA, quality assurance role, kind of small, in my region itself. It's a regional quality assurance liaison. So it's the clinician in your specific region who really specializes in the compliance, the documentation, the QA piece. And then about 3 years ago, I was able to get promoted to what I have now, and I'm a QA PD clinical specialist. So now I work a lot on big picture items, which I love, I'm stoked about. And recently, over the last like 2 years of that, my primary focus has been in the SLC world, the senior living community world. So this is right up my, right what I love to do and what I love to talk about. I presented at different conferences through AOTA. I presented at local state things. So I just love the opportunity anytime I can to get in front of people and kind of share about it. As I mentioned, I've been a mentor. I was a fieldwork educator for, I think, about 12 different occupational therapy students. And sometimes I used to take 3 a year. And then, you kind of get older and you say, that's a lot of students to take at 12 weeks at a time and do it. So that's, kind of my work thing. And then the most important thing to me, I am fortunate enough to have a beautiful wife and 2 beautiful sons, 6 and 2. One is currently still home because they don't start school till tomorrow. So hopefully you don't meet him, but you never know with that. And then I have a 2-year-old. And as I mentioned, I'm a big sports guy, big Penn State fan. So absolutely just love that. I love everything about sports. And that's why I think I was kind of on the fence of where I wanted to go. I lasted in athletic training for 1 day, and they made it way too tunnel vision for me. And I like to be able to expand. As you can imagine, someone who thought they were going to do peds and end up in older adults, that tunnel vision wasn't quite for me. But now let's hop into kind of why you're all here today, to really just hear more about what it's like being in the senior living and kind of my perspective from it. So all these, names listed here are so important to making the senior living community be impactful, beneficial, and supportive of all of our, the residents that are going to be there, the families that are going to be there. It's really important that we focus on the care planning, that everyone has a voice in that, the coordination, the follow through of that. If we are writing that, someone should be on this tier or this level of care for the services they should be get, then we have to make sure everyone's in the loop and everyone's getting those services. And then the management of all that. So you have the executive director of the senior living. Those are typically the people who are running the show there. They're really handling all departments, making sure it's a smooth running. And then under them, you might have different sort of directors under them. So you have a director of nursing or the wellness director. They're going to oversee the nursing care if the senior living has those services there. You're going to have a community liaison, a marketer. They could be called a sales director. Those are the people who are bringing people in. They're the recruiters. They're the sales. They're selling the environment, selling the services that senior living is offering. The activity director is someone that I would say myself really collaborate a lot with. They are the ones who are creating that social environment. They are the ones who are creating the fun activities for the residents there. They're the ones who are planning trips. And what's really important is that if you could imagine right now, if I was trying to plan something for everyone in your class to do, it would be quite hard. And you guys are all college students that I could maybe make assumptions of what you like, but it'd be challenging. Now imagine trying to create an activity for an average age of 80, and you have some individuals who have trouble with mobility. You have some individuals with trouble with hearing, trouble with seeing, whatever it may be. So think about how challenging that would be to now create an activity for them while being all inclusive of everyone participating. So that's one of the things that occupational therapists and kind of the rehab team could really support and really help. Certified nursing assistants or caregivers are probably, the thing that separates a lot of the senior livings. These are the ones who are helping the residents every single day. They are the ones getting them ready in the morning, helping them get ready for bed. They're the ones walking them to meals. They're the ones carrying over any recommendations that we may add. You have the dietitian, the meal staff, you have the medication technicians, maintenance directors, right? So you think about all in all, how many people you are interacting with, right? And for what purpose you have. Everyone has a clear role. And I know one of my, at Jefferson University, they have a class where the OT students go into people's homes and they have to modify the environment and somehow to help their clients thrive. And they do it at my community sometimes, and it's always sometimes calming them down. And they have all these ideas, but figuring out, okay, let's prioritize, figure out what's important, but then also, who do you go to? Like if you have a recommendation about an activity, who do you go to? If you need a grab bar installed, who do you go to? Fire safety plan, who do you go to? So it's really important that we understand, and whatever your role may be in a senior living, knowing who to go to and who's responsible for that. An in-house physician is a typical, it can be in a couple different ways. So for instance, I had one in one of my communities where the in-house physician was pretty much there, I would say almost 40 hours a week, really had a big presence, was constantly on site. Now where I am, it's more like a visiting in-house physician. One, they have two different, what we call in-house physicians. One comes on Wednesdays, the other one comes on Thursdays to visit. They see those residents in their homes, in their apartments, and will help with any signed orders or signed prescriptions that they may need. So that's just, kind of ways to see it. They're usually favored just because of the opportunity to get scripts easily if the nursing needs a new medication for the resident. And in-house physician is typically going to be the quickest option. Same with therapy orders. However, just like with therapy, I'm talking in my perspective, every resident has the freedom of choice. So just because I'm in a senior living does not mean that they must go to therapy with me. Absolutely not. They have freedom to choose. We have a clinic that's like a block, not even a block away. It just opened up. They do PT outpatient, and we've referred to them. Sometimes if their insurance might be better, they want to go out, but they can't go too far. And it's all about just providing the options for these residents to make sure that they are given, opportunities to choose, just like you or I should have the opportunities to choose. So when you're in the senior living, all right, you're reading to this, you may think this is really common sense. And I remember learning plenty in, grad school and undergrad that felt like common sense. But really when you see it and you feel it and you really think about it, these are the best ways to make such a big impact. Smiling and just making your presence known. It is so important. I have this thing. I do not like whenever I ask someone how they're doing in the senior living world, not a friend, not a colleague that I'm close with, just, you're walking by someone, you say, how are you today? And they unload on you, right? Just maybe a stranger, maybe someone, or we do that to someone. And I just don't feel like that's right. If a resident to me is telling me about their struggles, I'm all ears. When their son, their daughter, their grandchild comes in and lets it all out on me, that's what I'm there for. But I don't think it should be our role to then say, oh, how are you today? Oh, whew, what a bad day. I barely slept. This happened. It's hard. And I always share this story. I had a student who was just with me for one day. So I was helping another colleague of mine. One of my patients, he had physical deficits, visual deficits, but he was an extraordinary man. He was actually, gold medalist in jiu-jitsu for older adults, like for his age range. He did TED Talks. Like he is a fascinating motivator, right? So now again, a motivator. And he's just talking to me, talks to the student, and he says to the student, oh, how are you today? And she writes, I'm a little anxious today. I'm overwhelmed. And I'm like, oh no, like, why? You just met this man. Why is that your first thing? And he goes off on his motivation speak about, what does it feel like to be stressed and overwhelmed and trying to keep your head above water, right? And then that moment, I just sat back and I said, this is a great teaching moment because we make these personal connections with our residents. And I am absolutely not telling you to everything needs to be a smile and everything is great if things aren't. But just know the audience, know how to share yourself. Be that breath of fresh air. Be that positive energy into these communities because, it's something that's so important. That's how you build those important relationships. Check in regularly with wellness and staff members. From the moment you walk in that door, everyone deserves the highest level of respect. I mean, frankly, that should be how we live our lives everywhere. But I'm just saying, especially when you're a partner like we are, you want to be there. Comprehensive partner. I want to find out who's moving in, when they're moving in, and any information I have about them. I also want to know more about a new staff member who just joined it, like just came on board. We want to know all these things because that's how we really be a strong partner in the senior living world. Timely communication and visits, right? If we say we're going to do something, let's make sure we do it. Things happen. I've had to leave work early. My colleagues had to leave work early. We thought we were showing up. We didn't. Just communicate that. Set up a new time. Have that open, honest communication. If you didn't do something you said you would, it's okay. Just have that open conversation. Communicate with, any changes. Attend the meetings. Remain professional. It's how we look, right? Always make sure you're put together, I guess you can say, and make sure you know that anyone in that building could be somebody. I've walked by people and just said hello and good morning and asked how they were doing, and then find out that they literally are the president of my parent company of my senior living. And I might be telling jokes to them and just chatting with them, and I had no idea. And I've also done that in other places where I was presenting, and I asked somebody, oh, how long have you been working here? And he was the president of that company. So that wasn't my best performance, because, I probably should have knew who the president was. But, you kind of get that idea of always remaining professional and doing that. Some of the stuff we might do too is we might give presentations to the staff, in services, trainings, and never look in a hurry, especially as we're getting younger, the workforce and everything. I have 2 phones next to me, right? We have so many phones. Never look like you're on the phone running through the halls. Just have the ability to calm yourself. I always say it's like an elevator. I would love to put a camera right inside an elevator when the doors close. Because how many times have you been like saying goodbye to someone, smiley, cheery, that elevator door closes and you're like, oh, you just take a sigh of relief, right? Or lean against the wall because whatever, check your phone and you're answering messages. It's just, be present, be on time, and just make sure we're not hurrying along. So to kind of review some of the aging process, right? I think we always said, if you do this thing, if you go home later, you're on your computer and you just Google like older adults, chances are like 90% of those photos is going to be them talking to a health professional. It's going to be someone with scrubs. It's going to be someone checking their blood pressure. It's going to be sitting around, maybe playing a card game. There is certainly some natural aging that occurs. I'm up here today telling you I'm not feeling the same I did when I was in college. And I remember being like, I'm never going to feel it that quick. But you do, right? You start thinking all that. You lose about 1% of muscle mass every year as you age. So think about that now, right? If you start losing all that muscle mass starting at the age of 30, how's that going to look when you're 80? We talk a lot about things we do for our body today is to make us thrive when we're older. And I think that's really important. Again, I am not saying that when I sat where you sat, I had that same type of mindset and approach, but it is true. I think about exercise, how I used to exercise compared to what exercise may look like today, and knowing your body and the functional components of it all and how you should be exercising functionally, not necessarily just trying to throw as much weight as you possibly can all around. But exercise can offer a really fun reversal of this weakness. So exercise is absolutely recommended for the older adults. It's why we have a practice and why we're in business for over 27 years now. So it's important to really to know about that. The stronger a person is, the more they're able to fully participate in enjoyable activities. In the occupational therapy world, we call them meaningful occupations. An occupation is not necessarily your job title, but it's something that is meaningful to you. An occupation is also your daily living task. You're dressing, you're grooming, you're bathing, you're toileting. But it's also your leisure, it's social participation, it's sleep, it's work, it's different things. And you also have different roles. So if you can look at this picture here, the roles of this individual change throughout their lifespan, right? At one point, the role is you're a baby. You're just there, you're living. Then you're going to become an athlete. right? Then you're going to become a student. That is your role. For many of you, your main role right now is a student. Then maybe that role is going to be a teacher, is going to be the most important thing. Then your role is a mother. Then you're transitioning role into retirement. Maybe you have a role as a sister, as a spouse, whatever it may be. Those are your different roles. And then into retirement and into the older adult, what are those roles that you want to keep? For these people, the role could be a grandparent. And I've had individuals I've worked with, their goal was to lift up their grandchild. That was their goal. They had a new grandchild. They want to pick them up. They want to hold them. So you can guarantee my exercises involved a lot of lifting, keeping it close, and weight shifts for balance, because that was their goals. That's what they wanted to work on. Others are retired carpenters, retired painters, woodworkers, whatever it may be. These are their roles. And it's important to us that we keep those roles, and try to make them as meaningful as we possibly can. But with that, there is this slippery slope of aging, and you can see it here. What I will say is this is a pretty good representation, but we can change it. So I just want everyone to think about that. But if you look at how early frailty starts at about 65, 68. How many of us have, parents or grandparents that are over that and they look nothing like frailty, right? There's so many people. How many times you turn on the news and you've seen the 80-year-olds dancing? We have in Philadelphia, if anyone's into track and field, we have the Penn Relays. Every year they have the over 90 group that runs it. So it's like, there is ways to move this past. But when you start to lose muscle strength and that level of vigor, like it does start going down. And that's why we really got to keep pushing to keep that percent of vigor high and the strength intact, because that's going to lead to less frailty, less failure, and keep it later in life. Simple changes, are going to, you think about, they're going to help us out. They're going to make us only stronger. And that's something that's really important. When we are working with this population, whatever your role may be, understand that sometimes like the littlest things can really leave, the big impact with how they're going to grow and how they're going to succeed. And I want everyone to, again, when you're sitting there, think about yourself, think about, a loved one you have, a neighbor you may have. Like, how do you get them to enjoy the fun longer, right? Fun doesn't need to end at 55. Or, it certainly doesn't, especially as we start thinking about what is a retirement age and what do you do in retirement? That could look different throughout. There was at one point, the retirement was sitting on a porch on the rocking chair. That was retirement, right? Now retirement is traveling and jumping out of planes and being with family. I have people who are going on cruises every 3 months that I work with, that are retired. It's really about what you find meaningful and what's important to you. So, thinking more about what I do as an occupational therapist, I think it's always pretty fun when you can add some videos to it, and I can sit here and I'm going to share a little bit more about some of my cool stories. But on Fox's social media, I don't know if anyone follows Fox. If you don't, I recommend it. It's really, really impressive, especially thinking about where it was like when I first started. I don't even know if we had Instagram, 14 years ago, and now to where it is. And we have influencers. So you might see some similar faces repeated, but we have influencers that are clinicians that treat full time, and they make content about what they're doing, real content, not just, we're going to put a backdrop up and we're going to just do an intervention and I'm going to teach you. It's like, this is what I did today. I just happen to have my phone here and I recorded it. So I'm going to play the video. I do hope you guys can hear it. It just gives some music. If anything, you're not going to hear much talking, but this is just a couple minute video about what we do as occupational therapists. Can you guys hear the music? Someone give me a thumbs up. Cool. Thank you. So that's just like some of the things that we do, as clinicians here. And what's really, I think, important to see, if you've noticed, is like everything we do has a purpose, right? I think that's like really the important thing. In occupational therapy, there's three different like tiers. One is a preparatory exercise or intervention. Then there's a purposeful intervention, and then there's like the actual functional intervention. So if you notice, each one of those kind of had something like that. First, you're reaching for an Uno card. Like that's a purposeful intervention. You're never going to put Uno cards in a microwave, at least I hope you know. But like that's the purposeful. I just want to work on moving and scanning and standing. But then I'm going to lead the function. I'm actually going to heat up my cup of tea. Same things as when you're walking around cleaning up laundry. If I'm putting weights on you, I'm just doing it more to make it challenging for you, more so than actually doing your laundry, because if you were doing your laundry, I would not tell you to put weights on you. So you just think about that. So some of the other things, I just wanted to also share with you and tie it all together from that first slide when you got meeting about who's involved in these decision makings. A lot of the things I ask a lot is like, how do you shower? I know that's probably uncomfortable for many of you there, but one of the things we do is dressing, showering, toileting, grooming. That's our activities of daily living. It's 90% of my patients I'm going to be working on. So like, once I think about that and I think about a shower and how do I modify the shower? How do I adapt the shower? It's really important that you think about, well, who needs to get involved? I need maintenance to get involved, because if there are possibly any installations that are going to need to occur, I need to get the caregivers involved, because they're going to have to probably provide some level of support or assistance in carryover. I'm going to need to get the nursing director involved, because they might impact their level of care. If I say, hey, Mr. Smith's not being showered right now, I want him on showering, that's the way we might have to discuss the level of tier, right? So that's three different people that need to get involved with something so simple as, just putting a grab bar in. The other thing is we assess and implement environmental modifications or adaptive equipment. It's something that I do pretty much now. Just whenever I'm out and about, I'm looking at ways the environment is set up. I'm looking at thresholds. Next time you're walking out of your class, look at how many different thresholds there may be, meaning out of doorways, outside, uneven sidewalks, things that you walk over and run over now without ever thinking about it. Start looking for those stuff and think about what that would look like if you had decreased mobility, decreased vision, or even just sensory. Think about when someone's running by you, riding a bike by you, and if you don't hear them coming, imagine how startled that would be to like kind of see it. So you start thinking about that. But in similar to that video where the clinician is putting the tape on the ground, I find that to be super helpful. Putting bright tape, such as green, works really well with those with memory deficits. You put green marks where you want things to be. I've made X marks the spot. That's where the feet go. And that's where the hands go in a grab bar for toilet transfers. So my lady, Mrs. D, was in a wheelchair, so I was doing what was called a stand pivot. That's just where you stand up, you make a 90-degree turn, and you sit. So what I did was I had markings for her hands, where to put them when she stands up, and then back on the ground where her legs need to be when she sits. And it worked out really well. You want to create person-centered home exercise or activity programs. If I told everyone right now to stand up and you just stood there, how long do you think you would stand there before getting bored or wondering what the heck is he doing, right? If I just made you stand and listen to me. But if we stood up right now and we started playing a game or did something meaningful to you, or, figured out something that we enjoy doing, you wouldn't even notice the time. With Mr. S, who's pictured here, I try to get him to stand, and if I was doing an arm exercise or just working on standing tolerance and talking to him, it was under a minute. And without fail, he would say, I need to sit, Brett, or I'm tired. And he would sit and do a big sigh. He always made this like pursed lip mouth face when he sat. And then I found out that he loves dominoes. So I was like, all right, let's stand up, play a game of dominoes. Over 7 minutes of just playing. Never complained of shortness of breath, never complained he was tired. When he sat down, he instantly got over and started looking at the board again to see like, oh, I wonder where I could have went differently. It was meaningful to him. It was something he enjoyed doing. And with that, you can do so many different things. I could make him stand with different bases of support, meaning are his legs wide, are they together, are they staggered, whatever it may be. We also do a lot as occupational therapists with task-specific training. So that's just doing the task. which is what you saw in that video. It's way more meaningful. With FOX Rehabilitation, we are treating in the homes of these older adults. So we are like a brick and mortar, meaning if any of us right now have gone to therapy before, you probably went somewhere for therapy, right? You probably had to go to a clinic. They told you to come 2 or 3 times a week. Here, we're bringing that clinic into their home. So it's really easy for us to do like task-specific training. Another example I wanted to show is Mrs. T. So she's currently in the same facility that I work today. So past medical history, she had a stroke many years ago, so she has some right-sided limitations. And when she moved in, she had falls twice within the first 4 weeks of the senior living. And you will notice that a lot, unfortunately. A lot of these individuals have lived in their home environment for 30, 40, 50, 60 years in the same house, and they can do anything there. And it's why people with cog deficits can usually do better initially in their home. Vision deficits, whatever it is, they know their home environment, right? If you think about your home, if someone turns off all the lights, you could probably still get from room to room because you know your home. If you then were on a new apartment on campus and the first week there, they shut off the lights and you had to navigate, you probably couldn't because you don't know where everything is. You haven't learned it. So we see it a lot, unfortunately, is that if someone moves in, they sustain a fall. And our job is to obviously reduce that and prevent it from happening. Her falls were managing the blinds and then standing to retrieve clothing. So as I mentioned, right-sided deficits, kind of has a lean that has to use only her left hand. She receives assistance for bathing. She uses a quad cane, which is, if anyone hasn't seen that, it's like a cane that has a wide 4 prongs on the bottom, and they come in wide or narrow. That's what we call it, it's a wide-based quad cane or a narrow-based quad cane. There's also different walkers that you can use, like a hemi walker, which is usually meant for people with one-side deficits, and that's like a big, rectangle base, and that helps with that. And she also uses a power wheelchair, and she has a transport wheelchair for when her family's pushing her, or she can push herself using her left foot. Super supportive family. I always make sure that is known because when you get a super supportive family, there is nothing better. So kind of here's our bathroom setup. You can see, to me, what I notice here is you don't have much room between the shower chair and the wall. You can think about how that's going to go. You also notice there's, hard to see probably from your perspective, but some of these are like soaps and shampoos that are left outside of the shower, not inside the shower. So you think about setup, you have to always bring it into the shower. Imagine if you can put it right there. To get into the shower, you can see where the grab bar is. If you think about where that is level, you have to reach down for the grab bar. But what if we put a grab bar that's top to bottom right outside that shower on that wall, on that gray wall right there? Probably going to be a lot easier. I can hold it at my length, what's comfortable for me, and do it. I can put it on either side to help her with her left hand being her strong suit. So it's things to think about with that. And then, of course, I got to know why she fell. So standing to retrieve clothing and the blinds. So a couple different items here is, found in, I guess, our toolbox. I'm going to start on the bottom left right here with the clothes on the hanger. So what we found adaptive hangers that actually bring the shelving down. So these shelves, we weren't able to kind of reposition easily enough with maintenance help, like just the way it was set up, the rooms, trying to keep as much as they can universal. So we found these hangers that kind of go on, and then they drop the clothes down, as you can see, for clothes to be put on a lower hanger. So she was able to now retrieve her clothing while seated in a wheelchair, which is a huge win. Great benefit to safety. The other one up here is elastic shoelaces. They are fantastic. There are so many different examples on Amazon. This is just the one that I found to be helpful. So she was able to slide on her shoes with one hand without having to worry about learning some other equipment. Was really important. The one on the top right here, those are non-skid surface for her bathroom floor. So if you look back here, there's nothing under that shower chair. Again, it might be, I know it's hard to see, but there's like nothing under the shower chair. You put those in, now it gives that texture feedback. That's going to help with transfers post shower and pre, because in our senior living, a lot of them run the water before they stand in because it does take a little bit of time to get the warm water. So like that environment's already wet when they're stepping in. And then the bottom right, as I mentioned, she has staying to fall with the blinds. So let's get voice controlled equipment. In today's day and age, we have to use technology a lot. It's really beneficial. Excuse me. So having the opportunity to say, Alexa, open the blinds, and the blinds go up. Alexa, close the blinds go down. It's really helpful, especially at night when you're trying to close the blinds and your resident, your patient is really tired. It's a great way to do. I'm pushing more for, I think, more universal technology being used. However, if you guys can imagine, number one pushback, financial, right? It's expensive to have everything voice activated. We are piloting some new things in different senior livings throughout our Fox footprint with different technology. So it's out there. It's just finding the right partner. So I just wanted to kind of share some of those ideas with you. And as we kind of come along towards the end here, as I mentioned, I wanted to make sure I give you guys ample time for questions. I want to show one other kind of quick video just about more of our culture here at Fox, especially because the introduction was so important, talking about socialization and all that. I think this video fits really, really well with that.
I want everyone out in the crowd, I want you to be as loud as possible. Give me an F. F. Give me an O. O. Give me an X. X. What's that spell? Fox. What's that spell?
So, that just shows everyone about our culture here at Fox and what we do. We have a spirit night every year. So a lot of those videos were where each region kind of submits fun videos and It's really cool. And the other one is you might have saw a guy singing. That's actually our current CEO, and his people singing next to him was, Dr. Tim Fox, our owner, and the reason we are here today and exist, and Dr. Robin Kiar, who was our previous CEO prior to now Dr. Anthony Bucaferni. So it's just really exciting to see kind of a culture piece, right? You have 3 CEOs for the last 20 something years and the impact they've had, and it's exciting stuff. It's all about kind of changing the mindset of what aging is and senior living is. So, to me, going back to my story, the reason I never wanted to work with older adults is because I always thought older adults was what probably everyone thinks of as a nursing home. I had my nan, my dad's mom, her boyfriend had a unfortunate, really bad stroke. And he went to this place and he sat there for years, and we visited him and there was nothing. There was no purpose. I remember my dad would bring him a cigar because that's all he wanted was to just gnaw on a cigar and hold it. And even then, it was like a whole big thing from the community. And we're like, my gosh, he can't say 2 words and he smiles every time he has a cigar in his mouth. Like, that's the meaning. That's his role. Why anyway. So I always had that negative thoughts about what senior living is. And I hope, after hearing kind of me speak and seeing these videos and, doing the opportunity to explore what's out there now for older adults, it's so different and it could be so impactful, so meaningful. And even when you guys are all in roles that are playing something when it relates to older adults or senior living, it's going to be different than this presentation today. And I look forward to hearing kind of how you change. So, the last thing, Mark, is promote, our practice, our culture, our brand, our profession. We're constantly doing that. I hope you guys kind of see today, I'm promoting what I do as a profession. I'm promoting what we do as a practice. I'm promoting our role, everyone here, about the senior living and the older adults. Celebrate the wins. I can't tell you how many times, you talk to people and, right, and it's always the struggles. And yes, the struggles are there, but let's celebrate the wins. I have patients now that I have to celebrate when they stand up, just the littlest thing, because that's going to be the biggest difference in their day. And let's celebrate it. Let's tell everyone. I texted my patient's POA this morning, and I'm like, I got mom outside today. It was a beautiful day. We walked. And I thought that was a great one. And the next text from them is all about, well, her blood pressure seems to be slightly over the recommended, vitals for an older adult, age 65. And he's quoting the American Heart Association. I'm like, your mom got outside today. She's doing so well. Her blood pressure is fine. I'm with her. There's no worries. But that's what I mean. Celebrate the wins, because these families are dealing with a whole lot, right? And that positive is going to help and make things go right. And I'll make sure I share this presentation with Darcy so she can share with you, because there is one more video, just a really cool success story. It's just a little slower, so I'd rather you guys watch it at your own time. But it's a really, really powerful video. And it's Don, you can see right here, Don 72 Fox Rehabilitation success story. Even if you go on YouTube, you can find it. But once I share it with you, definitely watch it. It's just a really powerful stuff. So any questions? Kind of pause there.
Brett, thank you. Enlightening. Questions for Brett? Brett, I have one just to start with. So explain to us a little bit about the business model. So for example, I move into the community, I'm going to pay rent for my community, and then if I need some additional care or help with ADLs, I'm going to pay some additional fees for those. So I've got my rent, I've got my care fees, and where does Fox fit in? Are your services all Medicare billable services, or is there some sort of a contract with the operator for services? How does that work?
That's a great question. So we actually have a couple different business models within the practice. I will say primarily it is that we are billing an outside insurance. We are billing Medicare. So we are primarily a Medicare provider. So we're doing that outpatient therapy in the homes. I say it that way because typically if you say you're doing therapy in the home, people think it's home health, which is, nursing comes in really, you have a medical condition that flare up. But what we do is outpatient. So it's a nice luxury. We have a little more flexibility with frequency, duration, intensity. And then typically the patient may have a secondary insurance which will cover the additional expenses. For some patients, they have co-pays just like you or I would, or they have to pay X percentage. In our senior livings, we are private, like we are separate entities from our senior livings. So we are also paying rent to be in this space, in our gym space. So we do that. We also offer wellness now, Fox Wellness. And that is what I would say is the out-of-pocket private pay model, where maybe therapy is done through insurance. There's no skill. We always need to make sure there's a skilled care for therapy under an insurance provider. But when that kind of is done, when you get to that point where your loved one is safe and they're able to be discharged, they just need motivation. They need a trainer. They need someone to come, just more on a consistent basis. We have this Fox Wellness, and that's paid out of pocket. We also have different opportunities and programs here at Fox where we're actually billing the senior living. The senior living pays Fox for a different exercise and activities. So it's exercise classes, it's in-services, it's some one-to-ones. And that is where we're promising the community that all their residents are going to have the opportunity to get about 90 minutes of physical activity a week. So if your insurance, that could be one way, you go to exercise class could be another. But if you don't have any of those, you will get one-to-one services because, again, we're trying to do it and it's also being paid for by an outside provider. We always try to find, like before the resident moves in, we're always talking with director of nursing, the sales director, and ensuring that we have all that information in place, insurance cards, demographics, because that's going to help with the transition because things take time. And if someone moves in on Monday and they don't give me an insurance card till Thursday, they might not be open to the following week. And that's already a week now of a new environment without getting any therapy.
So going back to your original slide that talked about, or one of your early slides that talked about the people who were involved in putting together a care plan, and you pretty much, I think, just answered this. Because when I first looked at that, I'm thinking, oh, how does the sales marketer folks, why do they have to care? Oh, because it's a point of differentiation in terms of you selling community if the operator is providing that service from Fox, correct? Is that right?
Yeah, though, we try to get in as early as we can with those conversations. There's been times that we've sat in on potential new move-ins with their family, like in a meeting, and like straight up talk to them about where they're coming from, any of that. They all have packets of information about Fox. What's really challenging is in the sales world, they want to tell everyone they can get therapy right away. Right? Oh, we have therapy on site. Your loved one can get therapy. And then you look and they don't have Medicare or they don't have an insurance that we take. Or they come in with no insurance information, no doctor's prescription. They moved in and now we're expected just to make that appear out of nowhere. So it's really trying to keep those communications with the full team and explaining to them about like what is needed. How do we have the greatest success? What is the best way to be set up for it? And that ultimately is what we try to do. We have face-to-face meetings, stand-up. We identify in our communities, in our practice, an SLC team lead. And their primary responsibility is going to a lot of those meetings because we understand that if there's 6 people going to these meetings, it's an efficiency thing. Usually the DON, the ED, director of nursing, and the executive director are going to want to just talk to the same person, get things done, build a rapport. So that SLC lead is the one who's going into these weekly meetings, figure out, okay, who's on the list that's moving in next week, what's needed, how do we follow up with that, making sure they're there for meet and greets, anything we can do. They kind of take the lead on that.
Perfect. Other questions for Brett? Yes, please, Dr. Katina.
Hi, Brett. So have you ever had the opportunity to actually be in consulting when people are designing or remodeling a senior care facility? So could handle everything from very beginning, basically.
Yeah, I would say I've been more involved in smaller pieces than where I believe we should be as an OT. And I say that because we once were being contracted to come into a brand new memory care that was being built, like being remodeled. And then at the time, I knew the ED, had a great relationship with her. She called me in to do a walkthrough when things were already like 80% done. And I'm looking at this bathroom and I'm like, this is not going to work. Like the slope was the wrong way to the drain. Every shower had a lip. And I'm thinking, if 80% of your residents are going to be wheelchair bound at some point, how are you going to get them in and out of the shower? The grab bars were not in place the right way. So I was able to have some input, but not enough. I don't think we are involved enough. What I will say is there's plenty of private practice occupational therapists who have their whole job is that, where they are consulted, they do their own thing where they will have partnerships with contractors, and they're going to kind of act as the general contractor for a build and remodel and do it all as the OT, giving their input. There's also a new company that's in this PA region. I don't know if they're out west. They're called Jukebox Health. And one of their things is they have an occupational therapist who goes into the home and does the assessment, to your point, gives all the recommendations. They write up the eval. And then from there, it's taken over by the builders and the sales team to figure out what it is. But the OT does lay out all of what their recommendations. And we have actually a couple Fox colleagues of mine have partnered with them in the past and have been like the contractor to give their occupational therapy input.
Perfect. Yes, please.
When you're like helping, I guess, older people kind of like regain that muscle mass, do they tend to have like a harder time, and like does it take longer for them? Because you said they lose muscle mass quicker than we do.
Yeah. Yes and no. It really depends on the person. I will say primarily it's a little bit harder if the individual has never really been into kind of an exercise protocol. If they've spent the last 30 years and all of a sudden here we come in and are trying to get them to do resistance training. But there's also strong enough evidence that we all can confidently say, if done the correct way, like this stuff is really good for you. So you are able to do deadlifts, squats, press, all this stuff, if done the right way. That doesn't mean when you have your 9-year-old arthritis in both shoulders, can't lift her arms up, that I'm going to tell her to do a dumbbell press over the head. Absolutely not. But you can with certain people. Today, literally an hour before I came to do this, come home, my colleague, who's a good friend of mine, is having one of her guys push a chair down the hallway of my senior living. Like a big chair that she puts weights on it, and she's doing sleds, like sled pushes. This gentleman who she's doing it with is a former national Germany soccer player, right? So like, he's not going to sit there and do a 2-pound dumbbell. Like he's just not going. It's not thing. He's an athlete. The guy I was telling you about who was the jiu-jitsu gold medalist, he had physical deformities of his hands, but he had these adapters that helped him hook a kettlebell. So he couldn't grab a dumbbell or grab a kettlebell, but he had these wraps and a hook, and he would do kettlebells. And we were literally doing deadlifts, up into a press with his kettlebell and doing that all on a balance board. Great. But I will also say I have my other sweet lady who I'm doing a soup can with, because that's as heavy as she'll go. And that's what her goals are, right? It's just, she only needs to lift 2 pounds. She's gets a lot of assistance. So I think it's also about how we present it, right? A lot of times they'll say, oh, I don't need muscles. And you explain to them, like, you need functional muscles. So everything we do should have a functional purpose to it. You do squats because you tell someone how to get up and down without squatting, it's going to be impossible. I tell people to walk backwards. They tell me, I never walk backwards. My favorite line I tell them to go open that door, but don't walk backwards. It never happens. So it's just kind of meeting them, figuring out what's the in, and find out what's important to them. The individuals who want to hold their grandkids are going to be much more willing to do a weight than someone who just has a 24-hour caregiver does nothing for themselves and just is there because their family member wants them to get therapy. Those are the harder sells. But you figure out how to make it meaningful. How do you do something that is fun with them? That's a great question, though. And you got to be mindful of their, delayed onset of muscle soreness and their muscle recovery, fatigue, healing, nutrition, hydration, right? If you're starting an exercise program, chances are they're going to have to increase their hydration, increase their nutrition, because they're going to have to, kind of refill those calories and the energy.
Brett, thank you. Super
Of
insights.
course. Thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it.